Okay, welcome everyone to what I think is our fifth meeting between the Massachusetts Department of Public Health and its various partners at the state and on the construction side, and abutters to its upcoming Shattuck Hospital facility in the Newton Pavilion on East Newton Street. I think we all know the drill by now, so I just ask everybody to either raise your hand or use the chat function if you want to ask a question or make a comment. But other than that, I'm just going to turn it over to you, Asya, to walk us through your brief presentation and introduce the issues.
Thank you very much. Good evening, everyone. I think everyone's familiar with me by now. I'm Aussie Rosenthal. I'm a Deputy Chief of Staff here at the Executive Office of Health and Human Services. Below my name, you'll see other representatives from our team who may be speaking this evening. And I would like to also thank Bob Higgins down below in blue, who's a representative from the Department of Corrections, something we heard last week and a few weeks prior, last meeting and a few meetings prior to have some representation. So we're very happy to have Bob with us today. Next slide, please. So very quickly, our objectives today are to continue our relationship and our partnership with you, go through more details on the corrections van parking, a few updates on our construction coordination and our alternate parking, as well as community outreach and the best way to reach us when there's a problem. You've seen this before, but continue to build a trusting, respectful, and especially transparent relationship. But really, we want to focus today on reviewing and responding to your comments at the last meeting, take your additional concerns and take those back for review and bring them back to our next meeting, which we hope to be meeting with you more frequently as requested at our last discussion. So with that, I'm going to turn it over to Bob Higgins. He's the Deputy Commissioner at the Department of Corrections of the Prison Division. Bob has been with the state for many, many years, has quite a bit of experience, and he can speak more thoroughly to the concerns that you raised at our last discussion. He will, kind of give the overview of the process, specifically address the concerns that were raised, and then we'd love to open it up to questions from you. And if there's anything that Bob can't answer today, we'll bring it back to our team and get back to you at our next meeting. So Bob, would you mind taking it away?
So thank you. My name is Bob Higgins. Good afternoon, everyone. I'm the Deputy Commissioner of the Department of Correction in charge of the Prison Division. I've been in the department. I just began my 37th year. I've been an officer, a sergeant, a lieutenant, a captain, a division head in charge of the Central Transportation Unit that handles all transportation. I've been an Assistant Deputy Commissioner, and now I'm the Deputy Commissioner of the Prison Division. So what I came to speak about is any issues you have with the Department of Correction, any issues you have with the transportation. And I don't know if anybody's heard this statement before, but I'm just going to read off the quick topics that I have. So when a specific need for medical care arises, a team of highly trained correctional officers transport a patient with a strict adherence to the Department of Corrections established policies and procedures for secure transportation. Vehicles are secure in an entrance called the Sally Port to transition patients from the vehicle into the building. After the transition and the patient is securely inside the hospital, officers drive empty vehicles out of the Sally Port and leave the area, or if necessary, park them in approved parking spots. Patients are never unattended, and the vehicles are never parked with patients inside them. All DOC parking will be clearly marked with signage and will be video monitored by DOC officers assigned to the security control room inside the hospital. The signs will also display a 24-hour monitored access phone number where staff will be able to speak with any constituent and address any issues, concerns about the vehicles immediately. That number will actually ring in our headquarters where I'm located today. So with that being said, there was a couple of questions that I was asked to address specifically, and I'll get right to those, and then we'll open it up to general questions. So there was a question that says, confirm there have been no incidents in regards to a patient escaping from vans or hospitals. So I went back 30 years in the Department of Corrections annals, and we've had no successful patient attempts, escapes from DOC vans or hospitals in at least 30 years. I would even venture to say 35 years in my career that I know of. Why does the DOC reject East Newton parking street option specifically? So based on my training and experience, if we park vans on the street, they're subject to vandalism. The vans would be parked on the street. They're two-wheel drive. They're top heavy. There's a picture of the van located on the screen. If you park on East Newton Street, which I've brought vans there before and tried to park just to demonstrate what I was doing, you'd park against the curb with your driver's side to the curb. video surveillance from the hospital, if it picks up the van at all on that side of the road by the Solomon Full Hospital, would only see the passenger side of the van. The driver's side would be blind. Anybody walking by could vandalize the vans or do anything they want to the vans. The vans would be against the curb. In the wintertime, historically, we've had problems with vans against curbs. As the snow is plowed, as it's snowing out, the vans do get stuck against the curb with the pile of accumulated snow, making it hard to get out. Another major issue is illegal parking. If vehicles are parked on the street, the process or problems of people parking illegally in those spots. We have no authority to move anybody that's parked in one of the DOC marked spots if they're on a public way. So if somebody parks in that spot, that would require these vans to circle the neighborhood, which is something we don't want to do. We like to go in, get out, and go. So if the van had to circle the neighborhood, our rule right now is we'll circle 20 minutes. If we can't find a parking spot, it delays the appointment, we cancel the appointment. We don't park far distances away for security reasons, and that's why parking on the street would be an issue like that. Let me see. Alternative parking spots that were explored. So we went out behind the Solomon Full Hospital. I went back there. There are doubled up parking spots. The problem is they're not on video surveillance. This is very expensive equipment. That van we're looking at is $70,000 plus whatever security equipment's inside it. Very expensive piece of equipment. We always have our equipment on video surveillance or monitored by campus police visually and physically. So historically, anywhere we go, we park on the footprint of the facility. For instance, a courthouse, we park in a secure area at the courthouse. At the parole building, we park in a secure area of the parole building under video surveillance to protect our assets and keep our stuff safe and secure. Other hospitals, every other hospital we go to, and we go to the majority of the hospitals in the state, they have designated parking for our vehicles. So they're not in the way, they're not blocking anything, and they're under the surveillance of the hospital security. Safety concerns about noise pollution, the DOC backup alarms. So I went to those parking spots that were designated next to the loading dock, and for 24 plus years, I was on transportation. I parked in that loading dock when that was an active hospital. That's where I parked my marked police cruiser, DOC cruiser, when I bring inmates in through the back door. We'd park in that loading dock. So now we're looking to park next to it in our vans there. And that would be on the footprint of the hospital under video surveillance. So the vans would be seen. Backing those vans up would be a total maximum of 20 feet. 20 feet at the maximum. It's closer to 15 feet. It's 10 seconds of the backup alarm. The backup alarm is at 97 decibels. I checked with the Mass State Police, the Boston Police, and several municipal police departments. Law enforcement, typically decibel levels ratings of the backup alarm is between 97 and 107 decibels. Our correctional vehicles, the vans only have the backup alarms, is at 97 decibels. Our SUVs look just like the van in the picture. They're unmarked and they're silver like that. The only markings we have on the vehicles are a state plate identifying it's a state vehicle and a number on the roof that you can see. So the vehicles are unmarked. The staff are in plain clothes. We do that to limit our visibility in the public eye. We don't like to make a scene when we show up. We're not the police. We don't like to come in and attract attention. We like to have little attention, come in and get out, and leave the smallest footprint we can while we're there. So the hours of the hospital for the vans picking up and delivering are 9 to 5, Monday through Friday, weekends and holidays. The facility is closed to DOC operations. So it's a clinic based that patients need to go to for advanced care that they can't get inside the medical facilities we have at the prisons. So at this point, if anybody has any questions, I'll be more than happy to answer them.
Thank you so much, Bob.
Any questions? Cinda. Angela. Cinda, go ahead.
Okay, I'm unmuting. Can you hear me?
Yep.
Okay, great. Well, I appreciate the fact that you're here, Mr. Higgins. I'm really confused about some of the past interactions we've had with this problem. Have you taken a look at the fact that now well, let me get to this point. In the August 31st meeting that took place, Frank Doyle indicated at that time that he got confirmation for these. You can check the tape. I went over the tape yesterday. Confirmation of 8 spaces for the East Newton Street parking transport vans. And that this was confirmed. He confirmed it, that he had spoken with the Boston Transportation Commissioner. And we were under the impression that, and as a result of that, I think the discussion was that there would be 5 spaces placed behind what was originally a very small green area separating the loading dock from the back of our houses. And so certainly we were under the impression, since it was confirmed and then informed at the meeting, the recent meeting, that all those, that the decamp and the Shattuck was going to go back to the original plan of placing those 10 vans behind our houses. I don't, I'm very confused by this, because even when we did a walkthrough, I think in July, walk through that area, it was pretty well established that we were going to have some green space back there. And we talked about it and what would the plantings be and those kinds of things. And so I was taken by complete surprise when it was related to us at this last meeting. No, you're not going to get those vans. The Department of Correction has listed the reasons in which you've just stated, Mr. Higgins, why these vans cannot be placed there. Now, when you say that you parked in the loading dock, you certainly didn't park in that green space directly behind her house, because that was landscaped by BMC. And that green space, I think, is only about 30 feet from the back of our houses. And I assume that when Frank spoke with us, that he had already clear. I can't imagine that he would have gone to the commissioner of Boston Transportation and got an approval for these vans. If in fact, I know no one at that meeting when that was announced, decamp, Shattuck, no one, and I can't imagine that it wasn't run by the Department of Correction, that these vans were going to be there was going to be this plan to try to get these vans located, as that was confirmed by Frank, that in fact we did get them.
Linda, I can absolutely speak to that, and I'll turn it over to Bob for your other point of previous parking. In August, yes, when Frank did walk us through that was the proposed condition, and he was trying to come up with any creative solution. And we were trying to keep everyone apprised of that process and be as transparent as possible. We were looking into this. Obviously, everything still has to be vetted. And we actually have also gone through our meetings just to make sure, we are fully aware of what we're presenting and what we're going through. And it really was, and I'm sorry if this wasn't clear, but it really was a proposed condition on the slide. If you go back to our presentation, it does indicate that was a proposed solution.
He confirmed it, Asia. He confirmed it. Okay, go back.
Yes, he confirmed it with yes, absolutely. He confirmed it with the city of Boston.
Let me finish, okay? If you don't mind, I'd appreciate that, because there's another problem. I'm not interested. I've been here for a number of years. Mm-hmm. And certainly been through a lot of construction activity around this area. Anybody who's familiar with this area down here near Albany Street, I just find it outrageous. I find it unconscionable that this proposal of putting 10 vans, 97 decibels coming from the backup beeps, and in combination, if you're getting 2 or 3 vans backing out at the same time, it's going to be greater than 97 decibels, and it's going to be intolerable. And that noise level is going to go up and down our alleys. I want to add something else. I went to the Wasana meeting, the Worcester Square meeting, which I'm a member of, And at that time, John Santiago was there, and I had asked him if he would be kind enough to find out what were the decibel levels on these vans, in which he did. And he also sent me the information. He, through Nick Bornstein, sent me the information and wanted to inform me that the backup alarms were made by Echo and produced 97 decibels, and was stated at the same time that that was at the lower end of the scale. Well, that, that's relative to where those placement of those vans are in terms of the kinds of nuisances that they could create. This is another concern of mine. I called out there, and it was in Chicago, and I called out and asked some questions about this noise level, and related that to this person that we have a Boston noise code here, and where a 97 decibel sound might be acceptable in other parts of the city, maybe more in industrial parts, it's not acceptable in terms of this residential neighborhood, this East Brookline Street that abuts this property. And the Boston Noise Code, this 97 decibel sound is in violation of the Boston Noise Code. And I'm talking about the impact this close of those vans to our neighborhood. And the Boston Noise Code says that during the hours of 7 a.m. to 11 p.m., any noise louder than 70 decibels is unreasonable, except permitted construction. And number 2, during the hours of 11 p.m. to 7 a.m., any noise level above 50 decibels is unreasonable. Mr. Higgins, how do you get around that? How can you, not you in particular, but the Department of Correction, how can they violate that city ordinance in this residential neighborhood?
Okay, so I looked at and I went through all the Boston Municipal Noise related regulations, and I went to section 16-26.7, prohibition against certain sound devices in motor vehicles. And one of the sections in there, Part B, states this subsection shall not apply to sound signal devices used as a safety device, such as but not limited to a car horn, a backup signal that is actually used for its intended purposes. And also under the City of Boston Municipal Code, I reached out to the Air Pollution Control Commission, and there's a specific subsection that deals with these vehicles. And it is per section 16-26.13, Boston's noise ordinance specifically addresses this issue when it comes to law enforcement vehicles in performance of their duty.
Well, which law enforcement vehicles are you talking about?
The Department of Correction.
No, I'm talking about the specific vehicles.
These vans. The law enforcement vehicles, the vans and the SUVs that we drive.
So your view is, or your interpretation is that the Department of Corrections in the state are exempt from the ordinance because A, backup alarms for safety purposes are specifically allowed, and B, this is a law enforcement vehicle and therefore it's exempt regardless of anything else. Is that the position?
The position would be, basically what I said in here was the noise related regulation says that safety devices for backing up don't count against the noise pollution regulation. And then I emailed the Air Pollution Commission, and in the email, they stated that we were exempt. And I have a copy of that email.
Well, I think we'd like to see that, that's for sure. And I think that, this is Marie, sorry, but I've been going through this whole thing too, but I think that we would like to get the DEP involved in this, and the Air Commission, AACP, whatever it is, involved. We'd like to have them be a part of this, these meetings. So, we're seeing those vans are just vans transporting prisoners, so, and you're putting 10 vans in our backyards, and you're not having a problem with that? You don't see that there's a problem with that. You don't see that we're going to be calling the police, or we're going to be calling the Boston Public Health Commission, that in the future, you're not going to be, if this ever happens, which we're determined that it's not going to happen, that you're not going to be sued, or you're not going to be complained about. This is going to be an ongoing situation. But all you guys are sitting there just saying, we're going to do it. We're allowed to do it. We're going to do it. And this, this facility is run by Department of Public Health and mental health, whatever. And so you're saying it's like, screw you neighbors. We don't care about your mental health. We don't care about your well-being. We're going to just do this. We don't care about you. That's what you're saying here, when you have other options to alleviate this problem. And you're creating a really mental health problem. Just dealing with this now, that we've been dealing with this for a year. And then all of a sudden you're saying, we trust the last year of negotiation. Then you come back and say, frig it, we're doing this because we can do it. And so come on, you guys have to think outside the box. It's just crazy that you're thinking that we just have to deal with it. Like, we just suck this up and deal with it, because these prisons, you have put a prison in our backyard. You're not putting a hospital, you're putting a prison in our backyard, and you're saying, screw you, we're doing it. And Governor Baker said, we're doing this because it saves us money. It doesn't do anything else but saves us money. And it's just crazy. You think we're just a little street in this neighborhood that we're just gonna put up with it. It's not. We're not gonna do it. And you guys have to think outside the box, because this is a long-term issue. It's not a short-term issue.
Mr. Higgins,
construction for 2 months.
Mr. Higgins, let me just suggest this. I think that this is a situation in which what might apply doesn't necessarily work in terms of the conditions and the amount of property that's down here. The hospital has come in and has occupied less than a block area of this city. And to think that they would, the fact is, we're entitled to that little bit of screen space. We're entitled to the fact that we have an environment down here that is attractive for people to want to live down here. You're changing the environment. You're changing the attractiveness of this area. Who knows how you're affecting people who, once they understand what's going behind our houses, that it really looks as though it's an attractive place to live, and it can influence, and it's going to really change the environment. I'm only going to suggest this. I know that at BMC, they as well take care of Department of Correction clients, and their location, they do own the property, but their location is across from the Shapiro building, and they have the signs up. I cannot imagine that there are going to be people who will see signs for the Department of Correction and decide, oh, well, I'm going to park there. They don't park in valet parking spaces. You can check out, see, they don't park in handicap spots. People don't park that frequently where signs are that are designated for specific uses. You're changing the environment down here. You're changing the enjoyment, the ability for us to enjoy our properties down here. And once this is in place, it is going to be so difficult to get it changed. You have to think about, possibly there has to be made an exception that, okay, we really do need to be respectful of the neighborhood. I certainly did not push back against the hospital, the Shattuck coming into this area. I think everybody's entitled to good health services, but this is so different what you're trying to do, and when things become that different, and that out of the ordinary, you rethink things of, well, maybe this is one opportunity for us to say, okay, this just isn't going to work for these neighbors down here, and we're going to factor them in. We certainly have factored in trying to be as reasonable with as we can, and participating in a positive way with the Shattuck. But this, to come out to even think that Gordon, were you involved in this decision to put the placement here? Was Frank involved with it? Asia, were you involved with this? Did it ever cross your mind in terms of what the impact was going to be on us on this street? And if it did, how did you ever reach the conclusion that it was a satisfactory replacement? How did you do that? I never was able to do that.
Cinda, let's let them answer the question.
All right.
And then Angela, you speak next.
I'd like just to add one piece to that, Cinda. That this is not high volume. So there are 10 locations, right? But for the majority of the time, the guards are with the patients in the building. So they bring the patients to the site. Patients go inside the building, the van is parked. The guard then joins his partners inside the building to be with the patients. It's not high volume. So it's not like.
How many backups a day is it? Quantify it, please.
I mean, we're looking at the most that we have at any one time is 10 vans. So if you looked at over the course of the day, it varies depending on the number of procedures being done. So that data is difficult, and the quantity fluctuates, but maybe Bob could probably talk to that a little bit more, but it's not high volume. It's not like pulling into a supermarket or, a takeout where you're pulling in, getting pizza, leaving.
Right. We got that. But what is the volume? Can you speak to that, Bob?
Yes, I can, sir. So currently right now, the volume at the Shattuck would be 20 to 25 patients a day, split up between those vans. What it is that's statewide, and they only come to the Shattuck or would go to the Shattuck if they need some advanced care that can't be handled in-house at the facility that they're housed at. Emergency trips go to the local hospitals closest to facilities where the patients are housed. So coming to the Shattuck, the 10 spots was based on putting vehicles there, a wheelchair van, for instance, if we bring somebody in a wheelchair, an SUV, somebody that goes by car only because they have medical disability. And we have 2-3 facilities that have people that can only go in cars. So they go in an SUV that's unmarked like that van. It's silver, just like that. But that SUV needs a place to park. The vans, for the majority of the time, would be dropping off and going to other trips. So you'd have a Shattuck patient on board. You'd have 2 people going to court. They would drop off the patient at Shattuck, leave the Sallyport, and continue on to the court. The way the Shattuck's designed, that the Shattuck staff will be doing the escorting. Currently, at the hospital we have now at the Shattuck in Jamaica Plain, they don't have the staffing for that. Under the facility that's coming, they will have the staffing to do the escorting inside. So the majority of the vehicles that park behind the Shattuck now would actually be leaving and going to alternate sites to sit at courts, parole hearings, or returning to the facility and wait for somebody else to come pick them up later. In fact, if they're getting discharged.
Angela, and then George.
A couple of things. So let's just back up and say that regardless of volume, we're talking about you have actually you have eliminated our green space to have these parking to have these parking spots. So it doesn't, volume is like that's already based on the fact that you're just going to do this. And so what's frustrating to me is that I don't know why we're having these conversations, because we you talk about trust and transparency, but as Cinda mentioned earlier, we were told that there was a solution on East Newton Street, and there isn't. And that just went up in smoke. So it's the transparency and the trust that's not there. What it feels like to us is that, or I'll say to me, is that you're going to do this. It doesn't matter. And I don't know why we're having these discussions, because there's no flexibility. There's no thought. There's no consideration. It's just, we're going to do this. And on top of the last meeting, the additional information was, and we're going to shut down the alley for almost a year, and you just have to deal with it. And we'll come up with a parking plan, but you didn't have a parking plan. I mean, I think you guys are capable of doing that, but what I'm saying is that it's all based on you don't have a choice. We're doing this. So I don't know why we're talking. Like, what's the point?
Respectfully, Angela, I do want to go through more on the DOC, but we will be addressing the parking issue that you just raised.
Well, you just answered like one little thing that I brought up. So I'm going to go back and say, again, we're doing this, you guys deal with it. So what is the point? Because we thought we had a solution for several spaces, and you're telling us no, and it doesn't really matter about the volume. You have eliminated green space. So I'm actually looking out from the where there were trees that blocked the dental building here. They're gone. All of this is gone. It's awful, but you don't seem to care. So I don't know why we're actually discussing this, because you're going to do what you've planned, and it doesn't really matter what we say. And it doesn't matter about the volume of interruptions here, because that's based on the fact that you've already eliminated our green space and you put parking spaces there. So I don't know why it's very frustrating that you talk about trust and transparency and discussion. We don't have, it seems like it doesn't matter what we say, you're going to do what you want to do.
George?
Yeah, this is for Robert. I had a couple of questions. It sounds like what you're saying is you're very rarely going to have, extremely rarely have 10 vans there. Most of the time you're going to have a couple of vans there, or 1 or 2 vans there, which kind of undercuts your problem with having. One of the objections to parking on East Newton was, what if somebody takes your spot? If you're going to have 10 vans there, one person taking your spot would be a problem. But most of the time, from what you're saying, you're not going to be using many of those spots anyway. So if someone takes your spot, well, you've got another 3 or 4 spots. The second is on vandalism. There isn't any vandalism around here. I've been living here 25 years. I have a car. I've never been vandalized. If anyone's going to vandalize something, they're going to run a key against a Porsche. They're not going to go look for your correctional van and say, hey, here's something to vandalize. So I just see your objections seem quite lame. That's what I want to say. And in some way contemptuous of the neighborhood. You're treating this neighborhood as if it's full of people running around destroying property and taking other people's parking spaces. This is actually quite a wealthy neighborhood, quite a bourgeois neighborhood, and that's not the way things are here.
David, you haven't spoken yet, so go ahead.
Thanks, David. I'm sorry I came a little bit late, but I agree with what George just said. Hearing about the volume and the frequency, it makes even less sense that there's a need for that many spaces. And I again reiterate sort of the points that I've made in previous meetings. There's been a lack of the design team, I guess, the Department of Corrections, to reevaluate the overall plan that is in place and it has been shown on the website. And I'm looking at Marie's sort of picture here as I'm talking. And again, I reiterate the fact that there is space in the front of the hospital where spaces could be made and available for these vans. And especially if you're concerned about vandalism or tagging or something bad happening to the vans, what better place would there be than to put it in the front of the building than in an alleyway? But I'll agree and reiterate what George just said. There is very little vandalism being done. And I don't think that that's a good argument. So I think there's a way to compromise, to meet us part way. You guys have objectives and you need to meet those, and that's the transport of the patients to the hospital. And it's a good service that you do. It's a necessary thing. Like Cinda said, everyone deserves healthcare. I'm a physician. I totally agree with that. I also agree that the transport of the patients has to be safely done. So these vans are important for these correctional for these people who are in prison. That being said, I think there's a way where some of the spaces can be eliminated in your plan. Spaces in the front of the building that seem to be filled with cars that I don't know who's pulling up if and parking in these spaces could be utilized. There's green space outlet in that plan that is behind the dental building, between the dental building and the delivery ramp that could be considered and repurposed for parking of these vehicles. And the idea of green space, I want to be like totally frank. I know some of you are probably rolling your eyes when we say green space. This is a small plot of land. It's a small plot of green space. It's not like it's a place where people are lying out and putting their beach chairs out and enjoying a read, but it is a green space that provides a buffer between a very industrial part of this complex and the residents that are on that street. And so I don't want anyone to think that this is, you know, a huge green space that we're trying to preserve, a huge park, but it is a buffer. And that buffer is one of the very small pieces that sort of keep a little privacy for the residents of this street, and also decreases some of the noise that is bound to happen, whatever the case may be, because there's the delivery ramp there, because there's other sort of vehicles that pull into that turnaround space. So I implore and I ask you kindly as your new neighbor to work with us to find some compromise. And like everyone says, it seems like it's all or nothing. It seems like it's all. There's not nothing. And so I don't think that that's a good way to come into the neighborhood and to make relationships that are going to be present for years to come. And I think there's a way that we can meet halfway and find some way to get what you guys want, as well as preserve some of that privacy and peace of mind that the residents deserve, and also the health. The final thing that I'll just say, and this is again me trying to think outside the box, because I don't think anyone's trying to do that right now, is there a way to reposition the parking area so that there's no backups, so that there's decreases that if this is like something that's totally impossible to take out of the plan, then can the positioning be repositioned so that there is no backup, so that the vans can come in and either parallel, pull in, or something of that nature. I'm just trying to think of alternatives that allow us to have some peace of mind, but then also accomplish what you guys are trying to accomplish.
That's something that the state would look at, Asya?
Yes, we can.
Scenario where
We're actually, hi, we were just actually, thank you for that suggestion. We were looking at the plan in detail yesterday. We hope that there are some spots that already are pulled through, and we will take it back and see what we can rework to maximize that number. And we'll also take back your comments to relook at the plan. And thank you.
I mean, Asha, my main question is, I mean, truthfully, like there is area behind the dental building, like that is not green space that is being used or has any purpose for either the hospital itself or the residents of East Brookline Street. And there is space that has been repurposed in the front of the building to make it green and sort of have a curb appeal, for lack of a better way of saying it, for the front of the hospital. Like, if this is a hospital, it's not a hotel. It's not a landing spot for people to have a vacation. I know people want to go to a nice looking place and feel that they're not going to, you know, another cell. But let's be honest, there's ways that we could rethink that front of that building, achieve what you guys are trying to do, and also give us a small sort of peace offering, for lack of a better way of saying it, and allow us to maintain that green space. if there's a need for green space anywhere on the one block there between the hospital and East Brookline Street, it's in the rear of that building. It's not in the
Yeah.
front.
And building on what David just said, I feel like maybe we need to revisit the possibility of locating some of this parking in what I'll call the courtyard area. Or, you know, on East Newton Street, which is not on-street parking. It's that, I believe it's, you do have some designated parking there. And I feel like that was an option we talked about at one point, but it sort of got shunted aside when it appeared to, well, I should say, when we were told that the on-street parking was a viable option, that sort of got dropped. But it seems to me you need to revisit that. I'm not sure who would be parking there that would have higher priority than these vans. Are you able to do that?
Gordon and our team, we can take one more look at it. I want to state out of full transparency, you know, when we've said we've looked at things in the past, you know, I just don't want to confirm that we'll be able to make any changes to our current proposed of 10, but I'm happy to work with the team to relook at this,
Right.
taking these creative solutions in mind. Thank you, David. And David.
I guess who is dying on the cross that this courtyard area needs to look like that, or that this is the only place for these vans to go? I mean, it's not. I know you guys have jobs, and I know you want to optimize the space and the use of the plot that you guys have purchased. But at the same token, like, it doesn't make sense. It's not. You know, I think it just needs to be looked at with eye to the community as well, as opposed to optimizing and using every last inch of space and disregarding your neighbors and the people you're going to be interacting with for the next however many years the hospital is here.
Let me propose this. So we're at 6:45, we're 45 minutes in. We have a couple of other things that are really important to talk about tonight, including the alternative parking, which is obviously becoming timely, and then the alley closure. So I'd like to propose this. Cinda and Marie, I see your hands are up. And if we can wrap this segment of the conversation up in the next 3 or 4 minutes, that's what I'd like to propose to do. I know we could talk about it for another hour, but let's please be brief with both your comments. We'll move on, and then we will come back to it later in the meeting if people want to. And I know we're going to come back to it at our next meeting. So
I'm going to be very brief, David. I just want to emphasize the fact that to Gordon and to Mr. Higgins, that loading dock next to us is occupied in and out by large tractor trailers coming in and out with delivery. So would be in conjunction of what would be a nuisance for us besides the vans. And we definitely can't change the loading dock. We know that.
Not sure I understood the question. Cinda, could you say that again?
I think it was just, Gordon, I think it was just a statement for us to note that, you know,
it's just a combination of the loading dock with their beep up vans, as well as then having these DOC vehicles with their beep up vans throughout the day. It's just overwhelming, Gordon, in terms of the noise level and the interruptions and just the general idea that it's just you just can't enjoy your property. You can't enjoy living there. And it's just unreasonable, Gordon. That's all. Do you understand did I make sense this time?
Yes, I
Okay, thank you.
understand.
Thank you.
Marie was going to go ahead.
Marie, go ahead.
Hi, I'm reading from the Department of Environmental Protection Noise Policy, MGL Chapter 111. Sections 142A-M 310 CMR 7.00 Air Pollution Control Mass DEP Noise Policy. So as a new source of noise, which you are now will be introducing into our neighborhood, our backyards, it seems like you would be required to mitigate its sound emissions if you are projected to cause the broadband sound level at a residents or building housing sensitive receptors to exceed ambient background noise more than 10%, 10 decibels. So is it true that the state can just do the stuff without any kind of prior awareness and approval of this plan? Because you are introducing this noise, and the state says that you have to find a mitigation solution, and you're saying you don't have to. Is that true? Robert Higgins?
I'm not saying that at all. I'm saying our vehicles have been coming to that facility when it was a previously open hospital for the 36 years I've been in the Department of Correction. I personally have been to that hospital
Parked up the
over
block.
100 times.
You guys weren't parked there. You blocked.
I parked in the loading dock all the time. I parked at the very end of it to the right against the wall. I walked the inmate down the loading dock and into the radiation department on the bottom floor.
10 other men.
Personally,
Well, but let me ask you this. Let me just ask you this. The regs that Marie just referenced, are those relevant? Do you believe that those you're covered by those, or do you think you're exempt, or do you think they're not relevant?
I don't think anything's not relevant. We care about our neighbors, you know, contrary to what anybody thinks. We care about our neighbors. We empathize and we sympathize. And that's why I'm here to explain that we're there and we're just trying to accomplish our job safely and securely. And that's the only reason why I'm here, is to put people at ease that we're not out here to do anything wrong, to make loud noise. I mean, I've given direction.
But aside from your intentions, which I'm sure are good, are the regs applicable or not?
I haven't seen the regulation, so I'll look it up and read it and I'll give it to my legal division, but I haven't seen that. What I do have is the City of Boston Municipal Code 16-26, unreasonable noise. And it's page 5, if anybody wants to review that. And I have the Boston, Massachusetts noise rate related regulations. And that's going to be on page 4, section 1626, that speaks directly to safety issues, safety backing up noises.
Okay, so let me just propose this and we'll move on. Next time we meet, somebody from the state speak to why or why not the regulations that Marie just referenced are or are not relevant in the state's view.
Can I just ask one quick question that Robert just brought up, or Bob just brought up? You know, you referenced that you parked in the loading dock. I guess, is that another option? Because if that was the sort of to-do thing when it was the East Newton Pavilion, then if we can get a couple of the vans in there, and can maintain the green space with some large trees or shrubs to provide some noise barrier, then maybe that's a solution. There's several, you could park against the wall and have several of the vans there, because it seems to be something that worked in the past. I don't know why we're not investigating that. And then explore some parking options behind the dental building. This is the type of thing that I think, and I'm happy to meet up with the design team, with the Department of Corrections, and brainstorm and be a community representative, or I'm sure there's others on the call. I don't have a level of trust when I hear, though, that we're going to go back and look at it, because it's been very hollow sort of results from that. And so I think if we really truthfully want to do something, let's have community members come and brainstorm with the design team and the Department of Corrections to find some solution that works well for the safety of the Department of Corrections, for the safety and health and well-being of the neighborhood, and allowing us to sort of find a way to work together. I think that's the way we move forward, because I feel like we're sort of going round and round here. We're doing the same, it's sort of like a fool's errand. We're doing the same meeting every few months, and we come to the same conclusion at the end of the day, which is exactly what Angela's saying. This is a done deal. We'll go back and say we're going to talk about it, but nothing comes back that's different. And I don't know if there's a lack of creativity or an understanding of the neighborhood that needs to be added to that discussion. And so I think that's where we need to maybe think a little differently tonight.
David, I was just going to offer that. I mean, I came on this job. We're a communications company. We're and mostly around construction, and we do all the big construction jobs. So it's not unfamiliar to have these kinds of conversations. But this is very unique with the patients and everything. All I can say, and I'm not, this doesn't carry any weight, perhaps, but since coming on since January, I did look back at the early meetings. This team, the people on this call right now, really have tried to look at so many different options, and really did and understand the values of your neighborhood and trying to preserve a small piece of green space. They came up with the other alternatives. In the end, operationally, for the safety of the corrections officers and the patients, it was decided that it needs to be clean and operational. But I think Asia just said, let me finish, please, if I might, that Asia, what I'm saying is this team really does care and is trying to do the best in a very, very difficult situation. But David has been very gracious in his and both Davids, but David, I'll mess up your last name, David, if I try it. But it's really offering to try and find a solution, but it's going to be very difficult, and it would require a different operational approach. And that's, that's difficult. Anyway, I know talking to these guys in the meetings that they really do want to do the best by the neighborhood and try to do the best thing. But I guess that does ring hollow if you don't get what you want.
So let me just use my privilege here as the host to sum up what I think we're feeling on the resident side, and then we really need to move on. Basically, you said it's very, very difficult. It feels to us like you put the difficulties on us because because the Department of Corrections is not willing to tolerate what seemed like relative inconveniences. So with that, let's move on.
Okay. Hello, everyone. My name is Jason Icavelli. I'm with Gilbane. I think I've met a lot of you, but I've been on the last few calls. The next couple of slides that I'm going to talk about really kind of pertain to the construction coordination, and the second one will be a little bit more about the alley. Some very similar themes that you've seen before, so I'd really like to focus on a couple of the new items in here, but I do want to remind everybody that my team is fully aware and been respectful of the work hours that we've been promising and that we have been maintaining. We're trying to stay in strict conformance with that, but we don't stop before 7 a.m. We really have been enforcing that with all of our contractors. And as the job gets bigger with more construction that will be taking place, I recognize, and so does my team, how critical that's going to become. So we know it's a challenge and that we're going to stay ahead of it. I'm not saying that there might not be a blip here and there, but we are going to work really hard with the team we have. And our focus is the neighborhood when it comes to that, absolutely, and being safe. We have also, as we get to work in the alley more, as July approaches, we will be installing some no idling signs. We have those ordered and we'll be posting those. And if they come in sooner than that, we'll probably post them either way. So you might see some new signage added. And I think we have quite a bit of signage out there already with that little bump of work that we have in that back corner at the Valley lot that's been ongoing for the last week or so. The new piece in here that I want to kind of focus on a little bit more is, and I mentioned this before, but to put a little bit more attention on, we have in place on site, and we have had in place for quite a bit now, vibration monitoring systems within the building and the perimeter. They're in multiple locations. They provide us with real-time notifications. I get them right away if something occurs, and we do test them every now and then to make sure that as the construction's ongoing, that they still remain active and they haven't been tampered with or moved or anything like that. We did receive a notification this week. Unfortunate that we received one, but we wanted to address it right away. It was also posted on the website, and we got the notification right away through the website. So the process does work. So that I feel really good about that as we move on. Gilbane gets those notifications very quickly. It's probably within, I'm guessing, 10 minutes or so after it's posted. I looked into it with our senior general superintendent. It was a concern over some vibration or swaying type of feeling in a portion of the neighborhood across the street. We investigated it right away. We looked into the device. We actually had a device within about 50 feet of where we were working and on the outside of that building, and the device did not get triggered. So we are closely monitoring those conditions. We even went back and tested the device to make sure it was operational, and it was. When we performed a test on it, we got a notification. So my team is, our senses are even more heightened in that area, and we're going to continuously monitor that to check, to make sure that we keep into the limits that we've set for ourselves when it comes to that. So that's a continuously monitored type of condition. So I want to let everybody know that we are looking into that on a daily basis, and they're always on. If you want to go to the next slide. So this, the next piece is, this is the slide you've seen before. And nothing really new here, with the exception of just a reminder that this is now happening as of July 1st. It was going to be late June, but it's now July 1st. We will be setting up that temporary fence in that area to create an emergency egress passageway, pedestrian egress, if it's needed. Hopefully it will never be needed, and there won't be any emergencies. The access, and I don't know if I mentioned this last time, I may have, and maybe if I did it too quickly. But one thing that's important to note here is where that yellow arrow points, that's going to be the way out. So it would be exiting, as you're looking at the slide to your left, to the valet lot, and then out that way. And that is really primarily because the deep excavation stuff with the utilities and everything that we need to do is at the lodge area closest to Albany Street, coming all the way down into where that high planter bed starts and even continues a little bit further. So to come out in the back and go to the left from there would be, you wouldn't be able to do it. So the fence line would go that way. One thing that was asked me to go back and look at, some feedback that I got from the last time we met, was regarding fire apparatus in that alleyway. We have a lot of experts that look at this. I don't just do it on my own. We don't do things in a vacuum here at Gilbane. So we hire a few people to help us develop these code related plans, these fire protection plans. That alleyway has been confirmed that it does not meet fire department apparatus requirements. The perimeter streets do, and that's part of the plan. I also triple checked with the state building official as well. I shared my plan with him. We did, and he was in complete agreement with it. And he did stress that he liked the idea of having that emergency pedestrian access way, which we will be maintaining, and that goes up in July. So I wanted to follow up with those, and that's probably the biggest thing here. And once again, that's really primarily because of such the high risk activities that it could be going in there, and not to put anybody, exposed to those risks. We'll have excavators, cranes. There's a lot of trucking and handling that'll be dropping off materials and then leaving. And then, come as those summer months happening, you'll see as we put the facade on the building, staging that'll go up. Not the staging that you see on East Newton Street. It's not going to be pipe staging like that. It'll be staging that they call them climbers, that either go up the side of the building or swing staging that hangs down. It's much less intrusive, and it'll hopefully allow us to try to expedite the work as best as we can. So we're trying to get the work done as quick as possible. But the limitations in there are challenging. So we're looking to see what other measures we can do to kind of work through those challenges. But so those are the two new things that I wanted to really mention when it comes down to those two topics that I just mentioned. And once again, if anything comes up, the website worked. I even got a separate email, which was fine. And we do want to be present in the neighborhood and community and address things as they come up immediately. So we'll be there.
Jason, can I ask you, thinking at the last meeting, a concern that a few people expressed, or maybe more than a few, was a scenario in which they needed sort of emergency access through the rear of their building. For example, if a water heater were to fail or a large piece of equipment, and a lot of these buildings do not really allow such large things through the front,
sure,
because of their convoluted passageways. Would you be able to make sort of a special arrangement?
I'm going to say we will absolutely try to accommodate that. The only thing, like if it's an emergency situation where a water heater went and you had, the only way to get out was the back, we're going to work with you. Maybe some of our guys could even help you take it out, but we want to be there. If somebody mentioned if somebody's moving out, let's say one of those is a lease or rent, and you know someone's leaving September 1st, if you know that's a hard date and you have to get some furniture and stuff out from the back, the sooner we know that, the easier it is for us to make those accommodations. But to answer your question, absolutely, we want to work with you to help with that. If I was living in one of those areas and I had that condition, I would want the same help. So we want to be flexible. If something comes up and the road's all open right behind that for that week, and then something came up, we'll have to figure another way to get at it. But we will work with you guys, absolutely, or everybody. So just my only thing that I'd like to ask is if there is something that's planned in advance, so you know the date, if you could just kindly let us know, or if you think something's coming up, that would just be helpful. So, okay.
Great, thank you. That's appreciated.
You're welcome.
Can I ask you also the pedestrian egress or access that you envision remaining once the fence line's put up or in its final spot for the duration? How wide will that be? Is that a matter of a few feet, or just like, I'm just trying to.
So that's a great question. It's super tight back there, as you know. You've probably seen us taking some measurements to try to figure that out, and that's why that dotted line kind of jots out in a little bit. It was trying to be a little maybe too precise for this one sheet, but we are trying to get to that 3-foot mark to make it as comfortable as possible. We are not going to be able to go any more than that. It's even at 3 feet. It's going to be hard for us to get a vehicle down there. It's going to come down, drop stuff off. You know, you might even be tight opening some of the doors, but it's going to be really to get that access in and out for those materials. So our goal is to try to keep it at 3 feet. It might get pinched in a couple of spots here and there. And in some days, we're actually not going to put it, and I think I mentioned this before, but I'll say it again because it's been a little bit. You're not going to see those Jersey barriers, those concrete structures with the fence on top of it. It's going to look like the one below because we may have to manipulate it during the day and then move it back when we're done a little bit. So we need to have a little bit of flexibility, and that's so important because when we leave at the end of the day, we want to be able to maximize the space in there and try to get it to that 3 feet where we can. So having that on the blocks where we can kind of move it around a little bit is helpful. It poses a problem for us during the winter months or high winds, but it is kind of nestled in the alley where that's why really we like the Jersey barriers or when you drive the post, because it's less apt to move around, and we don't want that green or the scrim, that's what we call it, to act as a sail or anything. But I guess to get back to your question, I kind of said a lot of words there. It's about 3 feet.
Okay. Anybody have any questions or comments about this? I don't see anybody's hand raised.
If something comes up, you can send something on the website, or if you see any of either me or my team out there, just say hi and we'll ask us.
Okay. Angela and Cindy, I do see your hands raised now, so go ahead, Angela.
Yeah, I just had a question. So there's a system whereby if the vibrations go beyond a certain threshold, then there's an alarm that you're alerted to that, correct?
Yes, that is correct.
So in real time. So if something's happening that's causing the vibrations to go beyond this threshold, then what happens? Like, what's your response? Do you immediately tell your crew to stop what you're doing?
Well, so we haven't yet, but yes, that would be. So what would happen was we would get an email, and it just doesn't go to one person. It goes to multiple people, so that in case somebody's not there on site that day or in a meeting or has their phone down. So what we do is if I got the call, I would, or the email, I'd look at where the monitor was. I'd probably already have somebody else calling me who got the same notification. We would find out where the monitor was, what we were doing, and immediately have our team of superintendents go down to that area, stop the work, and investigate, was it knocked over? Did somebody unplug it? Did, what happened or what's causing it? And, and evaluate the condition from there. So to answer your question, yeah, we would go stop it and take a look.
Okay.
And we have a
So
map
that-
of where they are, and it's just, yeah, the report is, we get them, we would get it. And the only reports I really got is when we went to test the one that went in the area we were working, because we didn't get any notifications, we actually we made it move, like we kind of ticked it a little bit to make sure, like, because it looked like it was working, and then we got a notification, so. But we'll do that more often to make sure they still are all, because they're scattered, and we don't want anything accidentally, the power getting cut to it or something like that, so we'll keep an eye on them.
Cinda.
Thank you, Jason. I'm a little bit confused about these vibrations, and I do want to make a statement about the recent construction behind our houses, if you don't mind, because unfortunately, I am here all day. Our buildings on East Brookline Street were built in 1860, so they're 162 years old. There's been a lot of construction around this area, as I'm sure some of you are aware. And I know that I've never understood how whatever vibration level that is being determined, whether or not it really is compatible with what the conditions of our foundations might be. So I don't think that, I'm not necessarily convinced that if something happens to my foundation, that necessarily however the standards are for what is acceptable as vibration would pick that up. That's one of my concerns, because I just don't see it. I don't think there's any comparison to a foundation that was built in 1860 to foundations, even the foundation over at the Shattuck, which was, I think, was built around 1980s, in the 1980s. So I'm concerned about that. But could I make a statement about what's been going on behind my house?
Absolutely.
And Jason, I appreciate that. And I think my concern also is that, and why the backup parking is such an issue too, is because this construction that's going on it has a time period of 2.5 years. So then we would transition into the problems that would be created by the van parking. Okay, now now listen, can I have a few minutes, David?
We got to move on to the question of alternative
okay.
parking, and we need people's input on where they prefer to park. So if you really need to keep it to under a minute, Cinda.
Okay, I just want to say that I've experienced the debris that is being taken from the fourth floor building. I think they're the air units that are being taken out by the huge crane behind my house. Jason, could you do this? I'm going to really cut through this really fast. With those excavators, could you, considering that the crane lowers this mini dumpster down, you, rather than when it's lowered down, it's the excavators pull the material out of the minivan. The mini dumpster. I think you know what I'm talking about.
Yeah, no, absolutely. Go ahead. I think I know where you're going. Go ahead.
Could you please not use the bucket as the device on the excavator, and instead use the grapple? You know what the grapple is?
Yes. Okay. I know, to
And
kind of like compact it into the dumpster.
It's the kind that can use as a grabbing. It's a grabbing tool.
Yeah.
Rather than, and the use of the gravel is more precise, and it has more control gathering the debris, grabbing and lowering the debris into the dumpsters, as well as crushing the debris to make more room available. I think that would result in less noise and lower the vibration levels. The other thing that was of great concern to me is that on Tuesday, an excavator was taken down the back of our alleys. And I can tell you, it was very heavy vibration on my building as it passed by this area.
Okay.
I'm very concerned about the fact that you are using Albany Street as the entrance and exit for all this heavy machinery, and was wondering, even if it means that the Shattuck barrier would have to be redesigned near the Harrison Avenue, the entrance exit off of the East Newton Street, where the prison the future prison van entrances? Is there any way that construction trucks or heavy machinery that could fit down that passageway to East Newton Street be used to deliver some of this heavy equipment to this alley rather than using just the alley off of Albany Street?
Cinda, where again? You said off East Newton, the alley?
The entrance to where the future prison vans entrance.
Yep.
Right.
Yep.
Is there any way, rather than just taking these tons of equipment up and down the back of our alleys, creating all kinds of vibrations for the back of our buildings, and I've experienced it. Is there any way some kind of an entrance could be created, reconfigure up there near Harrison Avenue and the passageway from East Newton Street to where the prison vans will be, that's the entrance to where the future prison vans will enter from the front of the building. Is there any way that that alley could accommodate some of this heavy machinery and trucks going into the back of our properties rather than just using the Albany Street alley? It's because it's
let's let him answer the question. What do you say, Jason?
Yeah, so I don't want to say no because I'd like to look into it, but I can tell you that passageway, that's where the Sally Port is, where the vans that we talked a lot about. If you drive by East Newton, you'll notice, well, there's a gate there with that red scrim on it. Behind that are huge piles of excavated soil. We have a lot of site work going on in that alley. They were putting a lot of stuff in a tight condition rather. So at present, I can't use that because it's obstructed by everything that's going in there. We're building all that out. And then as soon as that's built out, we're going to be setting up staging. The same thing that's happening on that elevation behind your homes is going to happen. That's our west elevation, is going to happen there. However, when that happens on that, when we start to do the facade work, which is the skin of the building, the site work will be complete. So what I'm thinking right now, just in my head, and I can look into it, is maybe there's an opportunity, depending upon how the staging lines up, that I could take some stuff around and access through the back side. Let me look into it. I promise you I will do that. But for right now, if you took a look back there, it's not possible at this point.
If you could just speak again to this when we next meet, Jason, that would be great.
Yeah, I'll look into it and maybe I'll know more. I'll tell you this though, but the site work that's ongoing in that area, that's our west elevation. Like I said, that faces the doctor's office building, is going to go on for a little bit, probably. Well, I don't know. We're hitting a couple of obstructions here and there, but in that area, but it's going to go on for a couple of more months. But yeah, I'll look into it, and maybe by the next time we meet, hopefully I'll have a little bit more information. It wouldn't be totally blocked off from Albany, but maybe there's an opportunity to split it a little bit or share. But
that would be great.
Yeah, I'm going to look into it, and maybe I don't know. There's a couple of other things that are going through my head too on the machinery. I know. If you saw me looking off to the side, I looked at a picture I took of the excavator that was in that area. It was a track machine. You probably needed that given the size of what we took out. But maybe thinking about it now, maybe there's a rubber tire type of machine that I can recommend that they use if they have it instead. So because that's an excavator, and you got the metal tracks that do create more noise, obviously, because it's on those metal tracks. And they have some that actually have rubber tires, but depends on the size of the equipment, right, and what they need it for. But I'm thinking in my head that I'll look into that too. So let me explore a couple of things, but I know where you're coming from, and I'll talk to the gentleman about what they're doing with the debris in the dumpsters as well to learn more about that process and if they're the other device for it. But let me check on it for you.
Okay, thank you. We'll pick that up next time. I think it's 7:15 now, or even a little bit later, so it's important that we move on to the question of where people are going to be parking for the next year.
Okay.
But before we do, I have a hard stop in about 2 minutes, which just means I have to drop off, and so I'm going to ask if George is still on. George, are you still on? don't know if George is.
Yeah, I am still
Can you-
on, but
George,
I
can you-
also have to drop off.
Oh, okay, well, all right. So I guess maybe, Asia, if you can just sort of,
Absolutely. Yep. I'll continue the
moderate here
conversation
and,
and I'll moderate. Yep.
right, and we'll keep
Thank you.
recording and we will post. I'm going to have to drop off in a couple minutes, but go ahead with the remaining discussion.
For Gordon, do you just want to talk through quickly one of the options that we'd like to present to you and hear your thoughts?
Sure. So good evening. So as you can see on the slide, we're recommending the Smith garage, and you might be asking why, because the DOB garage is right next door. But as we've been investigating, we found out that the management is turning over. I've had difficulty reaching them. We've observed people during business hours having trouble getting into the facility, not being able to get any help. So this gave us some concern. So we went back and looked a second time at the Smith garage, which was our number 2 option. They're much more responsive to our requests, how they manage it. They have an attendant 24 hours a day, which is not the case at the DOB. It's only during business hours. And then you have to rely on electronic system if you need any help in the off business hours. So that just gave us concern that it might not be a good situation, for you guys, because you'll be there not just during business hours, but 24/7, including weekends. So that's kind of led us to that alternative. I've got some feedback that you guys might be more willing to live with some challenges in terms of being closer to your home. So if that is the wish of the group, we can go back and look at that again and maybe even arrange some smaller group discussions just to find out, what's kind of would be a no-go for you guys in terms of being able to reach someone, like a phone number you're gonna call and someone's gonna answer. You can do some of those tests on your own to see what you might have to deal with. But knowing that we've had some challenges in our relationship, we didn't want to propose something that I might not even want to live with on my own. So that's what kind of led us to this solution. We still have time to change that recommendation based on some of the feedback you guys provide. So I know a lot of times you guys have said, well, you've already made up your mind. We haven't. We're making a recommendation, but that's still open for discussion.
If there's any initial feedback from the group, please let us know. Impacted abutters will be receiving letters in the mail over the next couple of weeks. We'll also be coming down and handing out flyers, trying to reach people in any way that we can. But initial thoughts, would love to hear that. Marie, please go ahead.
Can you arrange it that we can use the pool?
That would be a good plus. We can certainly bring that back.
Hey, if you can get that to happen, my team parks there. I want in on it.
All right,
For the
Marie,
summer.
Gordon, add that to your list, please, because that would be a big perk.
Sorry.
I'm not sure if management is that responsive, but and I forgot to mention that Gilbane has been at the Smith for the past 6-7 months, and they've had good, a good relationship there, and they haven't had any challenges. So Jason can speak to firsthand that he's one of the people parking there every day.
Yeah, it's a good spot. We like it. And I think I first heard about it from somebody on one of these meetings. We were struggling to find some parking, and somebody mentioned the Smith. I had never heard of it, and I would never have known it was there. So we're thankful we have that. So,
and there is construction there as well, which you guys are probably aware of. So that was also why originally I said DOB would be a better option, because you're going from one construction area to another. But the long and the short is we've done a lot of due diligence over the past few months, which is why we couldn't make the recommendation at the last meeting, because it wasn't consistent information. It's led us back to the Smith because we feel that, you guys deserve to have, when you want to call someone, you can reach them. So we can take this up, and please use the website, or you can reach me, via my email if you want to discuss this a little bit more detail.
So is there,
I'm sorry, Joe, I was going to ask if there's any folks on the call who are their parking is impacted. Any initial feedback right now on this call, or will folks be using the website? I just know things are moving quickly, so we want to make sure that you're taking your feedback into consideration.
Excuse me.
I'm not seeing anything in the chat or hands raised, Asia.
All right, Joe, go ahead. Sorry.
No, I was just going to say the same thing. I mean, this is because really, Gordon explained why, we went to the Smith, the DOB is closer and that, but they just weren't very responsive, and we didn't want to put, abutters in a situation where they would have, it wouldn't perform well. But if the proximity is more important to abutters, we certainly want to talk about that. Now, Gordon, am I correct that the closure date, not a specific date, because I know construction is fluid, but I think is it moving towards July 1st as opposed to June?
Correct. We're now, as it says right here, we won't not likely to be before July 1.
Okay, so I think that what's been identified is a number of spaces that were on city tax rolls, plus the observation, you guys have been out there for a long time and seen the same cars again and again for a long period of time. So we thought we had a pretty good idea on who's parking there, and we're going to try and send out probably in the next week registered letters just so that people get a record, so we know that everybody that has this situation has been reached, and that that dialogue starting. But even if it is July 1st, it's relatively soon. It's very soon for a construction standpoint. So we need to have those, the project needs to have those discussions. And we'll be talking to each individual abutter separately. But as Asia had mentioned, or maybe Jason, I forget, if we need to go out and have a meeting in the field and talk about it, we certainly can. One thing I think the project has said it does not want to do is split it and have people in different places and stuff. That's it. Just, it won't, we have to kind of negotiate one deal for X number of spaces at one place. So if you want, Asi, I can talk to the communications page.
Thank you, please. Yes.
So I know, Maria, you put in the chat, and if I was a better communications guy, I would have been able to reply to the chat. I think I'm having a Microsoft problem. I typed up a response. I'm Joe Nolan. I'm Vice President of City Point Partners. We were brought on in January to just help with the communications, and because there's a lot of really contested issues here, and also really just make sure that when you send an email in and you want to get a response, I know Jason and his team were very responsive. They got a vibration inquiry, as he talked about earlier. It's working. We're going to work to improve it too, to make sure that everybody's on the list. I mean, and it's kind of, if you want to know about the project, you can go the overall hospital, if you will. There's the DPH MassGov Shattuck Hospital relocation. We can send an email in there and register to get updates. We're vetting how we would like to have updates for direct abutters, and we're kind of improve on that database, and that would be the second one, which is the Gilbane HTTPS Shattuck Hospital relocation Gilbane.com project updates. If you want to sign up for project updates, go to either of those, and we'll make sure that you might have seen these construction flyers in and around your homes recently. The idea would be to put out an update every 2 weeks that just said, a 2-week look ahead or something like that, that says, this is what's going on the next couple of this week you can expect. If you have any questions, this is how you can reach us. Because everybody, Jason is the star of these shows because he's very responsive. He's out there and he's the one on the ground talking and just trying to set up good lines of communication. So this team really earnestly, it's been said, this project has a job to do. They have to build this hospital on this property. That's what they're charged with, and Gilbane is doing so. But we're not unsympathetic to all the impacts on the abutters. But we just got to keep trying to make it work. And so we need your feedback. And I know it's frustrating. I've only been on here for a few months, so hopefully we can make some good progress and move this ahead.
Thank you so much, Joe. And thank you everyone for joining. We will be sending out another invitation for an abutters meeting. We will aim for next month.
Yeah.
Oh, Marie, please go ahead.
Has her hand up.
I was actually asking before you speak, if you just could or either repeat or put in the chat that specific statute that you were referring to that you wanted spoken about in the next meeting. I just wasn't fast enough to write it down. So if you can either repeat it, and I'm sorry to go back to that discussion, but if you can either repeat the particular statute or put it in the chat, that would be great. So we can follow up next meeting.
Go ahead, Marie.
I'm sorry, you're talking to me. Was that?
You had your hand up.
Yes, but could Robert Higgins put his regulations as well so that we can
Yes,
review that?
we will get those citations back to this group so you can review those.
Yeah, that would be great.
Absolutely.
So, no, I appreciate all the communication stuff but I think that what we're all feeling is that maybe you're hearing us, but you're really not. And I say, I mean, just what you say, ultimately what you're coming through with is that this is a done deal. And it's, and we're not seeing it the same way you are. And so we have a lot. This is a big deal. This is our lives, and it's going to change. It's going to change everything for us. And so we have no choice. BMC is sold to the state. There's no recourse to dealing with the state. It's really frustrating. And so you can do whatever you want. And you could put a prison in our backyard. And you could put parking spaces in our backyard, and you're not even required to even fence it off. So you could put these parking spaces that are actually in our backyard and not even fence around it, and not even mitigate the sound by putting soundproofing. You could just do that. And that's completely crazy.
Marie,
So
I'm sorry.
I think you really have to consider that what you're doing is really creating, you're putting a prison in our backyard, really. And so you have protections, you're taking care of your stuff. You're not considering us. It's clear. Even though I had issues with Frank, at least, and Rin, at least they were responsive. They heard us. And then all of a sudden they're gone, Frank's gone, and then you come, oh, we're not doing, so we're going back to square one. So we dealt with this for a year. A lot of us, getting together a whole street of people, do you know how much work that takes to deal with this? It's a lot of work. We just like you, we have full-time jobs and we have other issues. We have other stuff to deal with, family stuff. And then we have to deal with this. It's a lot of work. It's a lot of time. It's a lot of emotional energy. And so it's easier for you to sit there in your little office and say, oh, we're not going to do this. We're just going to go ahead and do it. We're going to just do what we want because we're allowed to do it. And that's what we're so frustrated about right now.
Marie, very, very earnestly, and I'm hearing that my words are coming up short. We are taking back what we heard today. We've heard a lot of creative solutions that we have looked at, and I'm earnestly saying we're going to look at them again. We're going to bring our design team back in again. We are taking everything that you're saying to heart. And again, I know you're not hearing this. I really care about this neighborhood. I really care about this project, and I care about our relationship moving forward. I'd love to come out and meet folks and build that trust. And we will start by re-looking at this solution with that team, seeing what we can do.
Thank you. Appreciate it.
Okay, may I say something? This is
You can
Cinda.
get the last word, Cinda.
Okay. First of all, I want to thank Jason for saying that he will consider my construction suggestions. And I do think, I've been around a lot of construction, and I do think that I want to give Gilbane a compliment, but I hesitate because I don't know what the future holds. But for right now, I know there's been, I feel like, Jason, you've been very responsive, and others, to the construction impact. And as well, I would like to compliment Rachel Hunt, who I really have appreciated all of her responses to my email. She seems to get back. It's as though she's waiting for my next email with my next questions, because she responds immediately. And that is really appreciated, Rachel. So thank you so much.
Thank you.
So if there are no other questions for this evening, you've certainly presented a lot, and I know some of this has gone around again and again, but Ossie has, made a commitment that we're going to sit down, and you guys don't see how many meetings go behind this trying to find solutions. It's just a very tight site, and the construction, from our church has to happen, but we gotta, it's been characterized a couple of times that we're going to do this project is going to do what it's going to do because they don't care. It's not that. It's because they're trying to achieve the thing of building the hospital, and there's only so much constraints. But I'm not going to go down that road. Basically, we'll go back, talk, and have another meeting in the near term. We'll roll out this alternative parking situation, which is a huge inconvenience, and we understand. But in the end, hopefully, when this is done, it can be done in a manner that is best for both parties, and that we'll gain a little bit of that trust. So if there's nothing else, I think we can sign off for the night.
Yeah, and I just want to thank folks for continuing to showing up. Marie, I hear you have jobs and lives, and this is a huge commitment on your part, and without your participation, we wouldn't be getting any of this feedback and moving forward at all. So I deeply appreciate that. So thank you for showing up and participating in these calls. It's not easy, and we're very grateful.
And sorry, just Marie, before you sign off, if you could just one more time, either put in the chat, I just want to make sure that we're able to answer your question, the statute that you specifically wanted us to take a look at.
And I'll just reiterate one more time before we sign off. I think many on this call are willing to sit down with you out of this forum to help you look at the ways that we can come to an agreement where both parties could have some means of satisfaction for the van parking. And I think, again, and happy to send an email or discuss this in an alternative venue. But I think bringing in community members to that relook will be an act of good faith and a way to have that perspective that I think may be missing from those meetings that you guys are going back to.
Thank you. I think that'd be a very reasonable option to bring somebody in for those discussions.
Very good. So if there's nothing further, again, thank you all for your time and extreme level of patience, and we appreciate it. And we'll have a meeting, I'm sure, sooner rather than later. And maybe it sounds like perhaps some smaller working groups in between.
That would be great. Thank you, everyone.
Hi, everyone.
Thank you, everybody. Take care.
Good night.